I hate the default answer that everybody gives that is raise your prices. I hate that cop out answer. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right for the customer. So I don't like that answer. Obviously, you have to charge enough to stay in business. We all agree on that. It should not be the default answer that it's become.
Welcome to The Boost, a podcast for home service contractors. We explore leaders and innovators in home services, their personal journeys, thoughts, and experiences with growth, marketing, and succession. We cover the good, the bad, the ugly, and its ultimate impact. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. Welcome to another episode of The Boost. I'm Zach Wilson, Chief Marketing Officer of Local. Today, we have Texas Medley, President and CEO of Medley Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing. Thanks for coming out, Texas.
Thank you for the invitation. Flattered to be able to spend some time with you.
We go way back. I think it's been officially 3 weeks since the inception of our relationship. But no, it was cool. It was good to meet you. And Texas was at an event in, where were we? Where was that? What town was it though? It was, I'm blanking.
Is it Argyle?
Argyle. That's right. As Brian was telling me, the unincorporated territory of Texas. We don't have that in Ohio, unincorporated areas. At least not that I know of. Are you familiar with that? Is that like a common thing in Texas down there? Like unincorporated, no tax-free areas?
He shared with me, so I learned probably around the same time that you learned about that. I guess half of that property is unincorporated and half of it is zoned some kind of way. So he gets some super tax advantages on one half and he kind of gets shafted on the other.
I don't remember us being in the same conversation, but that was pretty much the gist of it. I still don't really understand what it means, but you summarized it perfectly. Basically, if it's unincorporated, you're in basically a tax-free zone. And if it's incorporated, you got to grab your ankles. Today, I want to talk a little bit about your journey. You're here. You've been now in business for, let's do some quick math, on your own, 8 years. 2016, you started. Where did it all start?
So I was introduced very young into the trades through my father and through the gentleman that he worked with when I was about probably younger than 12 was the first time I ever went to a job site. But when I was about 12 or 13, I started going in the summer for a summertime job and helping him on a pretty regular basis, him and the guy that he worked for. Steve was his name, and it would let me tag along and put me to work, but they let me do real work. So I wasn't just handing tools. I was running duct work. I was throwing away trash. I was helping in whatever way I really could at a very young age. So very fortunate that I got to learn those lessons as young as I did and got to learn about hard work and having a strong work ethic from a very young age. Fast forward to probably 16 or so, and I got tired of doing that for my summertime job, and I went and got what I thought at the time was a real job. And I worked at a grocery store, and I worked there several years. I loved it. I still love going to grocery stores and admiring the merchandising, admiring how they're laying out their ads for the week, and just everything about grocery stores I still like a lot. I think there's really not a better job for a young person to get a lot of versatile skills better than there is working in a grocery store as a cashier or a courtesy clerk, a bagger. You learn about merchandising because you're hearing people talk about it. You learn customer service and learn how to interact with all kinds of people. You learn about money because you have an account change back. You just learn a lot of really great skills in that capacity. And so I did that, moved up into a middle management role at a quite young age. I was actually 17 or 18. I started working overnights in high school. So I would get up and I would wake up at 9 o'clock at night, eat some lunch, get a shower, head to work. I had to be there at 10, arrive at work at 10, and then work until 7 in the morning and change in the bathroom for school because we had dress code. So I'd change in the bathroom of work and then head to school till about 3, leave school, go home, get home about 3:30 or so, fall asleep around 4 and do that again. And I did that my junior and senior year of high school.
6 hours of sleep. That was probably more than I was getting in high school, and I was not working.
It was good for me.
Yeah, that's hard work. That's rough. Acting. I'll tell you what, to this day, not many people have that admiration when they go to the grocery store. Although I will say I do have some of it as well. And mine is honestly, this might sound silly. It's bagging. How old am I? I'm 47, and I am the worst bagger on the planet. I love helping out, but man, I get home and my stuff is always messed up. Always messed up. I don't know, and I'm not being flippant here, is there training for bagging, or do you just like figure it out?
There really is. I mean, it's very brief, but yeah, there really is. You don't put the rat poison with the fresh chicken. There's little things like if you've got cereal boxes and they've got two, build a wall and separate that bag and put things in the middle and layer it up.
By the way, this is a podcast about the trades, not about bagging. I think it's a vision thing. Like the baggers sit at the end of the belt and they can see up the belt and they see your cereal, they see your chicken or whatever, and you're always positioned differently. I'm like there trying to help stuff, and then you don't see the whole inventory of the cart. So I think that probably plays a big role. It's like vision on the football field or a soccer field. You got to have vision to be a good player, and if you don't have the right vision, then you're not in the game. So
yeah, every podcast I'm on goes down this rabbit hole talking about grocery stores. It kind of leads to something. Being that I was so fortunate to move up at such a young age through that grocery business experience, I learned about financials at a pretty young age because I had a great mentor, I had a great boss. I could read P&Ls at 19, 20 years old. I understood what gross profit was at a very young age because of that experience. That's the point of telling that story.
yeah. Oh, I thought it was talking about bagging. Okay. Gross profits. That's important. By the way, I meant to bust your chops on why your dad probably actually brought you to the job site, which was because you were 12 and you could fit into the crawl spaces in the attics a lot easier. Did you skip that?
Well, no. There's something funny about that for sure. But honestly, he wasn't going to give me anything. He would provide for me. Obviously, he's a great father. But I mean, if I wanted something, I had to earn it, even at that age. I skateboarded. So I grew up skateboarding. I still love skateboarding. If I wanted a new skateboard, I had to go get the money to buy the skateboard.
That makes sense. Is there any of that in the branding? Now that you say that, I feel like the Medley branding has a little bit of a old world sort of skater vibe to it. Now that you say that.
If there is, it wasn't intentional. The thought and idea behind the branding was I've just, much like my father who works for me now, I've just always thought old school looking things are cool. I like watching Happy Days and I like watching Leave It to Beaver and all those old shows. And I just thought,
okay. So that was the attachment there. It's a subconscious thing. You didn't even know it. We got to get this record, but you said it in your speech. You kind of busted Dan's chops a little bit about the logo. Do you remember what you said?
I don't remember what I said, but if I'm guessing, it probably had something to do with, much to Dan's disapproval,
Dan loves his mascot. There's no question there. You might.
And maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think the piece of work he's ever put out is definitely that one.
Yeah, well, it's the most unique because it doesn't have a mascot, right? There's no fluorescent birds or Teen Wolf skating on the roof of a truck or anything like that. No, Dan, we love you. You do great work. It was just fun because it came up, and Texas probably does have, or Medley Heating probably does have one of the more unique ones because it's distinctly different. So anyway, so going back, you left middle management, or sounds like at the grocery store at some point. What precipitated the change?
More grocery store stories. I'll try to keep them condensed. I started getting in trouble for doing things that I felt in my heart were the right things to do. Improving sales, doing some things in ways that they didn't want me to do it. An example may be having a bunch of discounted or clearance items rather than sending them to the back of the store on this small little shelf to go there and expire. Learn from an old school guy, if you put all those things in a buggy and just roll them right up by the front door, they see the low price, that stuff's gone in like 10 minutes. Things like that. I started getting in trouble. I was a hiring manager at one point. I don't know what happened. Some girl just said I was flirting with her in the interview, and her parents called, and I ended up getting written up by my superiors without any investigation into what was going on. I was just getting irritated with that sort of thing. I stayed up at work till like 2 or 3 in the morning one time after getting there, probably 9 or 10 the morning prior, filling out a report for them. I sent it off, had a good action plan on the things that we were going to correct. Walked in the next day and it said I said use 12-point font. Like that was the response I got to the report. Just stuff like that. I was getting tired of the politics of it, I guess. Especially when you feel like you're doing good work and you feel like you have a lot of value to offer and you just kind of keep getting pushed down. So I asked Steve, I said, hey, Steve, is it okay if that's the guy my dad was working for, is it okay if I come work with you for a bit and figure out what I want to do? Because I'm tired of this grocery store stuff. And he said, yeah, come work with me for a bit. I did some personal training at that time in my life. So I was doing that and then doing subcontractor installs for Steve and a couple of other guys, and then going to school in the evenings to get my HVAC, my license with my associates in applied science for refrigeration technologies, and really just trying to do all these things all at once to not go absolutely broke, which is exactly what I was doing, was going broke. Are you familiar with Travis Ringy?
No, I'm actually not. Who's that? Oops.
Go this way. No, Travis is awesome. We like Travis.
I didn't even put my thumbs down. No.
Travis is a good dude.
I don't know him.
He's a good friend of mine. Him and his brother grew and successfully exited a very respectable company that I admire a lot in Arizona. He commented on that photo Victor posted of me on stage at JV Warranties of Texas Medley at the Act Broke event.
Was he there or no?
No. Travis was not there, but he made a funny comment on that photo, and he said, Texas Medley has mastered acting broke.
And you have. This is a good story for starting a new company, because you don't have any money when you start a new company, right?
Talking with a friend yesterday, and you think about it, those are the people you don't want to go to war with. Those are the people you really don't want to go up against in business, because they've got nothing to lose.
Right.
Those are the scariest dudes out there. Those are the scariest entrepreneurs, because they got this tenacity and they've got this serious drive to win and succeed with nothing to lose by trying.
Yeah, for sure. Not that you want to start your business this way, but in terms of making a buck and making it work, you also go in there and, like you said, you'll do anything you can and have to do. You'll also charge pennies on the dollar for it too, right? Like you can go in there and just undercut the competition to the end of time because you don't care. $1 is better than no dollars, right?
A lot of that is just ignorance, not knowing any better.
For sure.
They don't understand.
You don't understand, or you don't know that you need to be a healthy company. You need to be at 20% profit margin, right? You just need to be at $1 in profit.
I'm on both sides of that fence. I hate the default answer that everybody gives that is raise your prices. I hate that cop-out answer. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right for the customer. So I don't like that answer. Obviously, you have to charge enough to stay in business. We all agree on that. It should not be the default answer that it's become. There are times when we need to look inward at our operations and say, okay, where are we getting fat? Where do we need to trim? Why aren't we not as lean over here? I'll give you an example. I hear people oftentimes, especially on the Facebook groups, they'll say, we're at 65% gross profit. And that tells me two things. Either A, you're not and you think you are, or B, you are so freaking expensive. If you're truly getting that, I think a better answer lies somewhere in the middle of that. Most people aren't getting those types of profits. They think they're not accounting for things. And we run a 40. If we can get a 40% gross profit, I'm a very happy man, which is by industry standards much lower than what most would advise.
Yeah, right. Well, Michelle during Act Broke gave a similar example where someone was saying exactly that. And then she's called BS too. And she's pulled back the curtain and was just like, yeah, you actually are, but you're actually not doing your accounting right. And I can't remember what it was, but she had all these liabilities. Maybe it was like trucks or something like that. Do you remember this conversation?
I do remember that.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was something like that. It was something like, they had all these liabilities, which was their vans or their trucks and something like that. And they weren't factoring that in any way, shape, or form, or they had that categorized wrong. And so, yeah, basic stuff can skew that, not even the overall health of the company in terms of your prices are too high. Or I'm sure you've heard this too. A lot of people say this is like in your org chart, you have to have people at certain levels in your org chart within certain pay scales to maintain a certain health. Yes, you would love to pay everybody astronomically and through the roof, but the reality is that you can't do that to be viable, number one, and to maintain a healthy company, because it's this sort of supply and demand equation where if you wanted to do that, and every business owner wants to do this, they want to pay their employees well, they want to reward them, et cetera, but you can't go over the top on that because you'll then risk the health of the company, or you have to, like you said, raise your prices, which then creates this cascading effect of risking the health of the company and so on and so forth. So there are these very delicate underlying economic factors to pricing, operational efficiencies, et cetera. So I totally agree. And at the end of the day, like you said, if the answer is just go out and raise your prices, it'll work until it doesn't.
Yeah, no, everything you said is exactly right. I mean, I'd have no problem with anybody charging whatever they want to charge, be it low, be it high, be it, whatever. That's their business. And at some point, they'll either be brushed out because they didn't have the profits to continue on, or the market will tell them, hey, you're too expensive and we're not buying your whatever.
And it has a big impact on locale too, right? Like in pricing in Cincinnati is going to be different than pricing in Fort Worth. It's going to be different. So all these things are not necessarily equal. So
Yeah, you got different relations from the state level, maybe from the local level. You've got different costs of living and what you have to pay people, what you can't pay people. There's so many variables and factors that go into it.
in your market, who's your biggest competitor?
We've got several mega companies in this market. I say mega companies, let's say anywhere north of 20 million, because we've got a couple that are far north of that. And then when you look at residential, plumbing, heating, cooling, electric, I can think of 5 pretty quickly. There's probably more if I put some thought into it. It's a densely populated area. I wouldn't necessarily say affluent, but have disposable income by and large. Multiple systems for HVAC on each home are not uncommon. Of course, plumbing and a need.
With those 5, let's just take, are they all privately owned or any of them backed by private equity or other investment sources?
3 are owned by private equity or backed by private equity. 2 are privately held, with one of those going through diligence.
End of the year, you'll be up against 4 of your 5 biggest competitors will be private equity backed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's that doing in terms of impacting your business or how you run the business, or can just talk here like strategy going back to the price conversation, right? This is actually a really interesting conversation, I think, because the game is you come in, you buy the company, and you've got to find efficiencies or you've got to raise your prices at the very, very basic level, right? Third one, take market share. You're trying to operate on scale. I'm guessing you know this exists in the marketplace. So what are you doing this year and subsequent years to try and stay competitive and be an active market shareholder in the community?
My position hasn't changed. I just want Medley to be the best that it can be. I'm focused on making Medley better than it was yesterday every single day. So we're looking at where we're deficient within ourselves and we're fixing those things. We're looking for ways to stay at the forefront of technology, stay at the forefront of what is excellent customer service. And to be quite honest, I don't give a lot of thought to if my competitors are private equity or if they're privately owned. It's hardly a thought because they're going to compete however they're going to compete. Whoever they are or owned by really makes no difference because I'm trying to focus on what's in my little sphere.
I think that's great, focusing on yourself and focusing on those things. And what are you doing out in day to day to make improvements? Is it just operational efficiencies?
This is one of those things that when people come and visit us, obviously I'm always flattered by it. I somewhat tend to take it for granted. I don't realize a lot of times how well we are operating as far as strictly from an operational standpoint. I don't realize how well everything here clicks until someone comes in and they say something, or you start to peel back of what they're sharing with you and you start to realize, oh, there's a lot of things going on here that other people aren't doing. Not my great ideas, by the way. It's truly a collaborative team effort, but it's resulted in just being a highly efficient, fluent operation. I know I'm kind of going all over the place. Every day we look at everything. We look at, okay, this thing takes 10 minutes. How can we make it take 5? Okay, this customer here wasn't happy. How do we ensure this never happens again? And we nip it in the bud. We look at, okay, we're falling short on this over here. Well, why? What are we going to do about it? Now that we know why, how do you fix it? And we just do that all day long, every day.
Who leads the charge on that? Do you have an operations manager?
I have a general manager, and of course an install. We call him production manager. He's over install and sales. And then we have a customer experience manager. He's our service manager, and he's our call center manager. But we talk collaboratively. We discuss these issues. One of the things I'm proud of, we talk about when we do our meetings with our team. I think I spoke on this at Act Broke. It's not unusual for change to happen here. Everybody who works here understands there's a lot of pivoting that takes place. It's never a ton of resistance to change because change is part of our culture. Hey guys, we're doing this thing this way now because of this. Okay.
That's awesome. If people are that open to change and implementing it that quickly, I mean, that's a win for everybody, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that with every idea, every person's on board. Like, sure, you're going to get some pushback periodically, but by and large, change is pretty accepted here and welcomed because everybody understands it's for the greater good of everyone.
Well, we talked about one, if you recall, the on-site recording, right? Met with a little bit of friction, and your take was, in short, either you do it or you go find another job. So that was a little bit of a different one.
In truth, that was the ultimate result of that conversation is, hey, we're doing this. If you don't like it, leave. But certainly, it wasn't a conversation that began with, hey, we don't like this. Well, if you don't like it, leave it. There's a lot of things between there because we want them to accept it. And so with that one specifically, it's okay. Well, why don't you like it? Well, I don't like it because I feel like it's weird to know I'm being recorded. Okay. Well, why is that weird? Well, I feel like, and they start to realize after you ask why a few times that they don't really even know. They just don't like it for any number of reasons. And so with that one, the analogy we put forward was, okay, have you ever been pulled over by a cop and been upset that they were recording? Most people would never be upset about that.
Yeah, well, you don't have a choice, right? Do you? I don't think you do.
What I'm saying is, who wouldn't want that filmed, that interaction?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Anybody would want, yeah,
right,
of course.
Right.
We're working on a video right now that'll be sent out to the customers, letting them know, hey, we have advanced software and technology at our disposal. This means that you never have to worry about being lied to. We've got the information. You're always going to get an honest and accurate diagnosis of your system every time. You get the best technical support supporting these guys. We can hear and see and look into every service call. You're protected.
Yeah, that's a great way to spin it, for sure. Putting it on them as opposed to you. And to be fair, not that it's not that way, not that that's dishonest. I think I shared with you an example of someone told me it worked to benefit the operator in the sense that a customer was lying to them and trying to get over on them. It certainly works both ways, in addition to training and all that, which of course is also super helpful.
Absolutely. There's nothing bad from it.
How long have you guys had that implemented?
2-3 months, I guess. Not too long.
I'm genuinely curious in that short time, like clean underwear, can't live without it type of thing.
I mean, yeah, it'd be easy enough to go back without it, but it's helpful. Can you cut a steak with a spoon? Yeah, maybe if you dig at it long enough, but it sure is easier with a knife. Using the right tool, it makes life better. It makes life a little easier. There's already been occasions where customers were out of line, and that protected us.
With or without specifics?
We had a customer say that he was, I don't know, this dude was obviously on some sort of narcotic, and he went to go get a haircut, and he came back and he was accusing our tech of sleeping with his wife while he was getting a haircut.
Whoa.
And the tech is just out there working on a condenser. And
wow.
We were able to catch all of that, obviously, and say, look, no, we can actually hear everything from every step. We can see what's been going on. I got timestamps, and this dude's just tripping.
Is it just brought up with you guys? I mean, did he bring in authorities or no? Was it just brought to management?
No, he's a crackhead.
Yeah, no, yeah, right. But yeah, obviously that can be scary. The guy comes home raging like that. That can be dangerous. I mean, someone just flips out on you. Plenty
of times when I was in the field that I would have loved to have conversations recorded that I could say, no, that's not exactly how this went down. Let's take a listen.
We're at 8 years now. Do you have a long-term vision for Medley? You just ride this thing off into the sunset. I know you don't have kids yet. Do you have this grand vision to have a bunch of kids and have them take it over? Or, you want to sell it? Do you want to give it back to the employees? Maybe something too early to think about?
Still having fun right now. Still enjoying things. It's being built like we're going to be sold, but that's really just because that's how you build a great business. Now, if we will or not, I don't know. We'll see what happens. With the amount of private equity entering the space, it very well could be a situation where there's a real play to be had by being a privately owned large company.
Yeah. There's a lot of people taking that position for sure. Someone a few months ago, I forget the name of their business, but they were a couple in the Panhandle. They built 2 different businesses in just a few short years from the ground up with the intent to build them quickly and sell them quickly. So some people just have these predetermined visions from day one. Everyone's different. So, and you're different too, because you don't have this clear vision. Totally cool.
Don't have the super clear vision. Don't have a wife. Don't have kids. I mean, this is my thing. I enjoy this. And certainly there are days that I hate it, but there are a lot of days I enjoy it, and I get to be around a lot of great people every day. And then I get my kind of entrepreneurial fix, and I get to be around some very high level thinker quite often as well. And the short way of putting it is at some point, I'm sure I'll sell it, but that's not right now.
Why would you? You're still young, because you do that and you're just going to have to go do something else. And heck, you might not like that as much as you like this, right?
May not be any good at it.
Yeah, well, that too. I mean, who says you're any good at this, to be honest? I mean, let's be honest.
It's true, though.
I didn't say that. No, I'm just kidding. On that note, what's your favorite part of the business. Every once in a while, I call it like ono schizophrenia, which is some days I want to come in and I just want to do one thing, right? Like I just want to do research and just do this every day, all day. And I'm just not that person. But I do have those days where I'm just like, I'm so over doing all this stuff. I want to have one job and I just want to do this one job. And some days it's, research. Some days it's like, this is super fun. Other days it's don't like touching the accounting stuff. I really just don't. A lot of business owners are like, that's my favorite day. I don't like that stuff. So what's yours? If you could come in tomorrow and only do one thing every day for the next 10 years, what would it be in terms of the business?
Oh, cheerleader.
What is that? That's not a job.
That's a job. That's an important job. Come in,
Who's cheerleader now?
make people happy and solve their problems and help them reach their personal goals and get them excited and play. We have a game room out here, play pool with my people as they're kind of coming through and just hang out with my people and make sure.
Not a job. This is not a job.
That's a super important job.
Do you have this person on payroll right now?
It's one of my roles.
And maybe that's what makes you such a great owner.
Are you familiar with Any Hour in Utah?
Yeah. Dustin, right?
Dustin Van Orman, Wyatt Hepworth, the whole family. I think everybody that's ever been related to Wyatt works there.
I've only met Dustin once. He seems like a super nice guy.
So, highly profitable company, very large company. Almost certain, he told me, he's got a true 95% retention rate. And meaning if anybody leaves at any point, even their interns or their little summer people, they count that in that number. A 95% retention rating of people that come to stay there and stay there. And he says that's one of the biggest efficiency finders, retaining your people.
Oh, no, I agree with that. The cost of training and not knowing what you're going to get and so on. Oh, 100%. Amount of efficiencies that's lost when you have turnover is just, it's awful. 100% agree.
Cheerleader is not a real job. I mean, sure, it's silly to say it like that. I get it, but culture is that important.
You did talk about that quite a bit, so that doesn't surprise me. But I'm going to have to ask some of these, maybe in Dallas, ask some of these bigger guys who on their payroll is their cheerleader, because you might have just created a new slot in the org chart over here, cheerleader.
Every company has one.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were just talking about they bought the business from their dad, and their dad, he just didn't like being a business owner. He wanted to be a plumber. And so dad finally sold the business to the kid, and the dad came back and worked, and guess what he did? He was in the field for, the next 10 years, and he just got rid of all the BS and was just happy as a clam just doing plumbing. So that's kind of where I was going. But cheerleader's your answer. Can't change it.
I love my people, man. I love making sure they're happy, and I take it very personal, extremely personal when they're unhappy.
Have you had a situation where someone is unhappy? And
of course, I mean, those sort of things happen every day. Obviously, some of more magnitude than others, and you respond with an equal amount of, I guess, an appropriate and equal amount of whatever it is you respond with. Tick for tack, if you will. I really believe, obviously, it can be to one's detriment, as oftentimes it has been to mine, to love your people so much. But I care about people a lot, and that can bite you periodically. If you're not holding people accountable, which is a weakness of mine, I struggle with those more difficult conversations while I surround myself with people who are better at those sort of things. I believe more times than not, when people know that you care about them, they will care about you in response and care about the work they do and take great care of the client.
I agree with that. Is there a situation where I think what you're alluding to is your affection for a employee impeded your ability to be a CEO, meaning you like them so much you couldn't fire them or something to that extent?
Or not even necessarily fire, but when you do care about somebody on a personal level, you can be naive and want to believe the best in somebody when that may not necessarily be true, or blinded by, not romantic love, obviously, but blinded by love, and not be able to see what others are able to recognize. I've often said, I could run somebody else's business better than I can run my own. And a lot of that is because those feelings get in your way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Have you ever heard of Wilson Plumbing and Heating or Wilson Companies?
I have not.
No, they're up north, northern Ohio. It's kind of interesting watching the circles of influence, I guess, if you will, in the space, because in my opinion, it's kind of a lot of the same people. Dustin's a great one. He's in for rightfully so. He's, at everything and on every panel. And there's a handful more of Victor, same thing. There's reasons that they're there because they've done well and, they're giving back and all those great things. But there's also a whole drove of them that are sort of like underground that are kind of in the background. His name's John Wilson, and he's Wilson Plumbing and Heating. Again, outside of Cleveland, and then Chris Hoffman, outside of St. Louis, Hoffman Brothers. Do you know that? You're a Next Star guy, right?
I don't know him on a personal level, but I know of him. Certainly an admirer.
Anyway, long story short, John on Twitter, and he posted something the other day, just sort of a meme. I think this is going to fly in the face of your philosophy. His is obviously different based on this. It was assume everyone is stealing from you at all times. And it was a picture of a camera, not of their office, but just cameras in the office, cameras in the vans, et cetera, et cetera. What's your take on that?
I'd need more context to know what he was speaking to in that moment. I'm sure he doesn't walk around paranoid that everybody's trying to rob him blind all day long, every day. Probably some context missing there.
Yeah, maybe. Here, I just pulled it up. Assume someone is stealing from you at every moment. Sad but true. Build processes around protecting yourself. Integrity matters. We've had to terminate employees for damaging property and not owning up to you. If you can't respect others' belongings, how can we trust you in a customer's home? We'll use key cards, cameras, etc. to monitor our facility. It's about accountability and maintaining a high level of standard and integrity among our team.
I agree with what he's saying. I disagree with, assume everybody is stealing from you at all times. I'm sure he was just trying to make a point.
He was. It resonated with me. I remembered it.
Here's one of the great things about cameras, much like locks. Locks don't keep bad people out. They keep honest people honest. Same thing with cameras. Same thing with processes. Certainly we put processes in place because if you do these things in a certain way, every time you've got a more predictable outcome as a result of doing these things. And then maybe sometimes processes are put in place because you've had an issue that you've got to fix. Again, yielding a predictable outcome. But I don't think you necessarily need to put a process in place to fix a problem you don't have.
I would agree with that. And can be processes there too, which is kind of what I think he was alluding to. Protect you and protect others, right? It's just simple check and balance. So if you could go back in time 8 years ago to wee little Tyke, Texas, and say, give him some advice in this journey, what would it be? What would you say, do this differently, do this better, don't do this? Any one or two things that sort of jump out?
Of course. The first thing I would say is knowing what I know today, and I told someone this not long ago, knowing what I know today, had I known it then, I likely would not have went into business because it was too much of a grind. It took some being naive to what I was getting myself into that got me into doing it. Had I known how hard it would have truly been, I probably may not have done it, knowing how hard it was going to be. So certainly underestimated it. If I had to go back and do it again, I don't know what I'd say to do different. Obviously, I'd say, study these things, learn about this, and take the information you have today and apply it. But I don't know if it would just be, I don't know, man. I don't have a ton of regrets about how I did anything. Certainly, I wish things that I would have been smarter about, but all those things were more ignorance, and I learned from them. So, I've had a cool journey. My best friend from 7th grade works with me. He came to work with me as soon as this thing started. He quit a pretty stable job he had to come work with me while his wife is 8 months pregnant, and he's telling her, hey, I'm going to go work with my best friend, and we're going to start an air conditioning contracting company, and we have no idea what we're doing, but I know the baby's due in a month, so we'll figure it out. I get to work with my dad, my best friends, and all kinds of family members. I don't know that I do anything different.
Similarly, if meet someone and they come up in Texas, hey, I want to quit my job, I want to start my own shop, what advice would you give to them?
I say, hey, that's great. What's your plan? What do you want to do with it? What do you want it to look like? Get pretty clear about that. And here's what you can expect. It's going to be hard. It can be very rewarding, but it's going to be hard. And just understand what you're giving up. You said something that made me think about your first question to that, though. The one thing I would go back and tell myself to believe in myself more, have some more confidence, believe that you're capable of doing it. There were a lot of doubtful times.
Yeah, whether you're on the right path or doing things correctly or something. But that's I would agree with you. The sort of ignorance is bliss, right? The less you know, the kind of the better in a lot of situations like this, because it allows you to grind, hustle, and really, like you said earlier, just be tenacious and have nothing to lose, right? And just for clarification, people can find you online mostly on Facebook. Just search Texas Medley.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, and I had everybody just about. I'm on Instagram. I haven't had that too long, and that's just Texas Medley all ran together, so anybody can find me on Instagram. I'm in a lot of the different groups. I try to offer value where I find a place that I can offer it. I try to ask a lot of questions and be a equally good student of the space. And if anybody ever reaches out to me, I'm happy to share whatever I've learned with anybody who cares to listen.
Well, I enjoyed listening. Are you presenting again at Rocket X or no?
That's what he tells me. I haven't seen my name on a schedule. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but yeah, he told me I'm supposed to, so I don't know what's going on.
This is the Victor way. But I've seen your mug come across the wire a couple times. I assume you're speaking. We'll see if you can bring that down the house in Dallas. And this podcast, this is a start, right? No, seriously, it was fun having you. And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. For everybody out there, I hope you took something away from this, and now go get them.